call to order this special session of the Tree Committee, October 28th, 2020, 1 o'clock p.m. for the agenda. I guess we'll begin with a roll call. My name is Anthony Ladd, and I'm with the Department of Public Services.
Ryan LaBelle, Department of Public Services.
Patrick McVeary, Parks and Recreation.
Chris Patchell, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Gail Walter, Environmental Concerns Committee.
Deborah Nichols with Consumers Energy.
Steve Skalski with City Kalamazoo Public Services Department.
Brian Vogel, Consumers Energy.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for making it today. I guess for those of you that might not have been on the email chain, I would like to welcome Gail to the Tree Committee. Your first introduction is during a special session, but typically we have these once a month, and we'll have a few kind of business meetings sprinkled throughout the year here and there. But really appreciate your service to the Tree Committee, and again we really thank Phil for all of his insight and commitment to the concerns that we all share to protect the trees and grow the forest here in the city. So thank you, Phil, if you're listening or watching, and Gail, maybe you can thank him for us, but welcome.
I will do that, and thank you for your welcome too. Glad to be here. Have no idea what to expect in this special meeting, but here I am.
Well, it should be pretty straightforward, but if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out or ask, any of us to help with that. So we don't have any guests today to present. This single item for today's meeting was brought by the Michigan Department of Transportation for a upcoming project at the I-94 Portage Kilgore intersection as part of a wider improvement project for the interstate. That entire corridor, they're doing a lot of different things, adding lanes, making intersection improvements. For those of you familiar with that Kilgore Portage I-94 intersection, trying to kind of streamline that and make some geometric adjustments. So through the process, they've been doing design process and getting ready for construction next year. It came to light that as part of their project, they were going to need to remove several trees. It's we're kind of in a good news, bad news situation here with this request. The trees that they're asking to be removed are in conflict with the sound barriers that you see along the interstate, to either move due to widening of the interstate, or to replace and upgrade those barriers to better insulate that noise coming off of the interstate there. So again, there's bad news that these trees are being requested to be removed, which obviously not something that we like typically. But the good news is that these trees being removed are part of a grading easement on city property, that we're able to capture the cost of those removals and use that money. I would say, based on the prices provided for each of these lots to do the work, we're getting a substantial return in investment on that work being done. And that was kind of the litany of of documents that you saw were for each and every one of those easements that the state was proposing to the city and the cost associated with that. Another good thing that I kind of spin this as is, you know, these trees are needing to be removed in order to insulate sound and noise pollution from the interstate. So, you know, in effect, we're almost making a swap there for, you know, the protection of one pollution to, you know, the insulation of another. There is a net benefit to the public by, you know, reducing that noise pollution. And again, while at the same time, I think we're getting quite the return in monetary value for the loss of those trees. So I'm going to share my screen and kind of go through as much of these documents as we want to go to. And then if there's any questions, we can kind of work through that. And then we can make our decision. And that's why this was needing to be a special session and couldn't wait until our next scheduled meeting, was just to keep this project on track. I think there was a few, you know, we were butting up against some deadlines for MDOT. So this was a decision that needed to be made sooner than later. Sound good so far?
Good.
Okay. So just to kind of summarize the request that's being made before we get into the nuts and bolts and details of the different properties. Almost all the trees that are requesting to be removed, basswood, Brian, you might want to weigh in here. Through our discussions, it's something similar to a cottonwood, correct?
I believe the person doing the survey couldn't tell the difference, and I believe from my passing by, those are cottonwoods.
Okay.
And that elm, I'm guessing, is just some tag along Siberian elm. I didn't see it. And the maples are probably just some tag along red maples, if I had to guess.
Well, I mean, just based on the size too, those are getting pretty close to a clearing and grubbing size tree. I mean, small brush, even though those are large species, they're clearly not that far along.
I believe it's like sort of swampy area that they wanted right around that train track is where I think a majority of these are proposed to be removed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is I think 17 trees in total is what I counted, or what I count from this list. And, you know, through here, you can see the different documents that were provided. There was a market study, third party, that was done to evaluate the properties that were having the work done for city right of way. And in addition, that cost of, similar to the consumers project there at Harrison, where the value that's being proposed from MDOT captures the amount of the amount that needs to be paid for retribution for the trees. Each of these projects, each of these properties, I should say, have been identified separately. With the affected areas mapped out. And as you can see, it's right along our right of way with with MDOT's property in conjunction to the project. And that's, pretty much the case for each of these documents with the value associated for each of these properties.
Will some of the funds be used to replace some of the trees in the general area, or is that?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yep. No, when we first received this request, that was an internal discussion that we had. Again, just trying to ensure that that these funds, one, are sent towards forestry initiatives, and two, to be, as replaced in kind or in that general vicinity as possible.
That is sort of like a swamp, so if we're going city trees, we'd want a general vicinity would probably be at least within a half mile.
Yeah,
Some of
I'm
them
comfortable.
aren't even in the city.
Yeah, they don't have to be in the exact same area, but the trees do provide a sound barrier in addition to the sound structures. So just from the view shed, it would be nice to have some replacement trees.
So that's a good point.
Yeah, I was going to make that same point. Trees provide not only sound, buffer, but also, you talked about the pollution control. The trees are going to be also take a role in pollution control. So, yeah, it'd be nice to put some back, because some of these are, getting to be kind of big, 20 inches and 18 inches.
Well, and I guess, if I could make a suggestion, we know that the money's there. Obviously, all of the money that's associated with those easements is not directed towards the removal of these trees, but that's what matters, for the context of this meeting today. I would say that we could take this sum total, and we have the ability to really, make a motion for even a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 type motion for these trees.
Hey, Anthony, is the city going to be doing the plantings if we were to go ahead with trying to plant some trees? Is the city going to be doing the planting using the money that we're getting, or is it MDOT that's going to be doing it through their contract services?
It would not be MDOT. It would either be our crews internally, or or a contractor that was managed through the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question, and I haven't looked at the maps, but since Kalamazoo now has a natural features protection overlay, and that's actually being revised and probably expanded, where does the overlay map, if you superimpose that on this area, are any of these trees, or area that's destined to be impacted, is that covered under the natural features protection?
So we kind of had a similar discussion when it came to the consumers project at the Harrison property. And that, still trying to find where the Natural Features Protection Act, how that marries with, critical infrastructure projects. And that I won't say there was a consensus at the time, But I also feel like neither of those sites, this one and the Harrison property, fell into that
Hey, Anthony,
currently or proposed. Yes, sir.
I just went to the GIS overlay. This isn't in that natural features protection overlay area.
Sure.
Closest would be kind of the golf course. So it's not far away, but golf course, Millen Park, Blanchall, and further to the west and then north following the creek. So we're outside of that that area for this project.
Great.
At least for this situation.
No, and so I felt pretty confident that it wasn't, but that really, that's going to come up at some point. At some point we will, and we'll need to maybe reach out to Jamie and get some better clarification on that. And I know that even for that consumers project, we had several conversations leading up to that, because even if it isn't included in that area, there's still some best practice guidelines to follow with that.
I guess
Anybody have any more? Oh, go ahead.
the only other thing that I might add is that in choosing the trees that would go in this area, I don't know if they're going to be affected by salt or anything coming off of the freeway. But I would say the focus needs to be sound and durability from that kind of environment, as opposed to somewhere else where we might look for a more decorative type tree.
Sure.
And native trees that will survive, of course, is critical.
Well, I would say we're certainly open to suggestion. It's kind of one of those unique opportunities where we have a lot of control as to what species we're planting and where. And I mean, it's pretty much a open page to put whatever you'd like in there.
It removes white pine. White pine won't handle the pollution, nor will they handle the salt. So they're a native tree that you might look at for evergreen, but that would not be the spot to put a white pine. So
Exactly. That's why I brought it up. Yeah.
Sure. And I'm sure Brian, you can kind of guide us in the right direction on that, but certainly if there's any input from the committee, more than willing to hear those suggestions.
Yeah, you're gonna want to find one species of pine that works. It's probably your best bet, or maybe a cedar or something, depending on it, because how wet that soil is.
Okay.
I think it was well, it's not native, but the Scotch pine is pretty good at that too. That's what pretty much, I think it was Roosevelt planted those all along the United States freeway system, and I can't remember what year it was.
you could look at what is it? Black Hills spruce. If you were looking at an evergreen, I'm not sure about the cedars, because if the snow gets too high, it'll desiccate the bottoms of them. If you're looking for a pine, maybe red pine, but those do not hold lower branches. They're more of a timber species, so they'll eventually lose their lower branches if those are what you're looking for on evergreens. But I know that the Black Hills spruce, which is a black spruce, will handle the salt.
Well, and I know that the salt is going to be a consideration, but I do feel that with those being on the other side of that barrier, and with them being probably not right up on that sound barrier, but close enough to kind of provide additional noise pollution insulation. Those are great considerations.
I guess the other suggestion too is don't limit yourself to trees. There are some native shrubs, and most native shrubs will get 30-foot tall or taller. It's sad when people bring them home and put them in front of their picture window and then it's up at the roof. So they're more of a smaller tree and they can handle a lot more of the conditions too.
Okay.
If this is a wetter area, as you mentioned, one native shrub that, I mean, there's probably actually a lot of good possibilities, but one that just popped into my head that gets pretty big is a high bush cranberry. It likes it wet, and it'll get pretty tall, big, and fill in, and it provides a lot of great habitat.
Well, maybe we'll start a thread just within the committee to kind of capture that and make sure that everything, and if there's additional thoughts after this conversation, we'll have a little time, but it's certainly something we want to get right, and maybe in a different setting than what we're used to, considering. Chris, to your point, something less ornamental and more functional.
I think that'd be great. This is an area that's not going to get foot traffic or anything else. So they should be there for years and years and years. And we want to provide all the things we've discussed, which is livability and habitat and sound barrier and survive.
Absolutely. Well, with that, does somebody care to make a motion on this?
Do you think we can do is it reasonable? Because I haven't really looked at the individual spacing to do a 3-for-1 type of replacement, or is it more realistic to do a 2-for-1 with some additional smaller shrubs?
Brian, before I say anything, do you have any thoughts on that?
If we're doing, I think we'll have enough room in general, just because they're probably going to be clearing a lot more room and than we would ever need for the most part.
So there will be space, and I personally would like to see shrubs mixed in there, whether they count towards that 3-to-1 or not. I think that'd be pretty neat.
I'd be willing to make a motion then that we do a 3-for-1 replacement with a variety of shrubs as well as trees, providing both habitat, sound, and environmental protection.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so moved. I really appreciate everybody being able to take time to make it today. I guess before we move on towards adjournment, are there any public comments?
We have not received any public comments.
Okay, thank you. That is the only business for today. There was no new business or updates to old business. Therefore, we will not be meeting next week for our regularly scheduled meeting. But I did have one update just for information. We were able to successfully award a tree planting contract for this year, and we have identified over 100 sites, and the contractor should be beginning that project probably in the next week or so. That was really exciting news to finally award that. I know that's something that we've been working on internally to get worded correctly and get some sort of package together that worked for everyone. So it really is a success on our part that we felt was important, and really happy to be moving forward with that, and potentially kind of laying the groundwork for future large scale planting contracts like this.
Do you know where all those trees are going to go?
We do have the locations. Yeah, and actually we're in the process right now of going through and marking those locations so the contractor can put in the misdig tickets for utility locations, and then we can proceed to put those in the ground.
Would it be possible for you to email us just a scan of the approximate location so we can keep an eye peeled as we drive around town?
Absolutely. And probably in that same thread, we could just use that to reply to species recommendations for this site discussed today. But yeah, we can certainly send that out.
Would it be possible to also, like, if we wanted to go and look at this site that we just discussed, get a better idea, of the terrain and the wetness ourselves, just to be able to make good recommendations? Do you have the package that you sent was huge. I mean, is there a specific little map that you can provide that says it's here and here and here?
There are several parcels involved. I mean, it would be, we could still maybe highlight off a GIS map of which properties it is in particular. But
yeah, that would be great.
Sure.
That would be great, because I'd like to go and just get an eyeball on it, because if I make recommendations for plants and trees, I'd like to have it be an informed, recommendation.
Absolutely.
Some of those areas we can't really access, can we? Because they're fenced off.
Probably not the specific site, but if we were able to coordinate, a group meeting out there to take a look at that, or I do feel like you could probably assess a pretty fair idea of what kind of terrain exists just from being in the area. But
a lot of that's off at the end of or at Emerald Park, at the end of Dorchester and Penway, which is it's a city park is right there, and water stations right there. You can access pretty much everything along the north side corridor there. You can see about where the existing sound wall is, and see some of the areas by walking through the trees in that area. It's all city property through there, right along the edge of the right of way there. The south side of the highway, you're going to have a little problem accessing because Zoetis is right there. But the north side is pretty accessible.
Okay, so you said this was Emerald Park?
Emerald Park at the end of Dorchester and Penway.
Okay, thanks.
That's an intersection there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Steve. Were there any other committee comments before we move towards adjournment? Okay. Well, I really appreciate everybody making it today. And Gail, welcome to the tree committee again. And we will look to see everybody soon. Everybody be safe, be careful, and we'll see you next time. With that, do we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you.